Hey, what's up, family? I hope you're doing well. I hope you're crushing it, and I hope you're beating your anxiety and your depression and whatever the fuck else you're dealing with. It's you against the world, and I'm betting on you. Let's get it. Stay hard. I've been working up to 9 miles each time I'm running, and I'm not sure if that's a good idea since it's getting hotter here in Houston. It's like 83, 85 degrees, and it's pretty humid. But I'm trying to take Jordan Peterson's advice and pursue the path towards maximum adventure. Lately, sorry, I think I snorted something. Lately, I've been thinking about therapy and the pros and the cons to it. I, grew up Mexican. I know, like in the Black culture and the Mexican culture, Hispanic culture, you get judged and criticized for, for saying you need therapy or, saying you feel anxious and depressed and whatever else. They'll think of you like you're crazy. Estás loco. And, I did my fair share of therapy. First I'll start with why this kind of came about, right? My son, he's 10, and I had the kids over this past weekend, and I got onto my son and told him to get off the TV because his sister wanted to, watch a movie, and, their mom has most of their stuff. I only have one TV, and, so they got to share, and he's got his phone that's not connected, but he's got all his stuff. Anyways, he immediately kind of just started freaking out. He went into the room, and, I'm busy trying to get my daughter settled in, and I go into the room, and he's calling his mom. And I was like, what are you doing? Not that it's wrong that he's calling his mom, but he's like, I feel anxious and I want to call mom. And I was like, all right, well, call me. Let me know when you're done. And part of me was kind of hurt just because, he went to his mother. Man, he went to his mother, and, and he's just kind of like, I'm not sure what she's telling him. And she's taking them to therapy and stuff like that. But I talked to him afterwards, and I told him, like, look, it's good sometimes that your mom wants you to talk about your emotions and to talk about the things that are going. But in reality, sometimes, buddy, we're men and you're a boy, and sometimes we're wired different. And ruminating actually does the opposite effect that it needs to do on us. In reality, for us, sometimes action alleviates anxiety. Sometimes we just have to do something, right? We have something built up, and we just need to focus on that task and accomplish it a little bit at a time. And I told him, I was like, look, who else struggles with anxiety? I was like, Daddy does. But his anxiety hits him a lot in the morning. In the morning is when it hits him a bunch. But what I have to do is try my best to get out of bed as soon as I can and go for a run and journal. And I was like, my anxiety goes up too when you guys leave, and I miss you a ton. And I have to write you letters to help alleviate that anxiety. Right? And a lot of times, sometimes we need to listen to mom, but sometimes you need to do what you're built to do. And, you need to meditate, or you need to put some action in to alleviate some of these things. And that got me thinking about the my journey with therapy, right? My first couple years, I mean, we've always kind of had marital issues and stuff like that. And first couple years, we really, struggled. We went to like Christian therapists, and to me, it was just a bunch of BS. And, they told you to read your Bible and pray. And it's like, well, what the fuck am I paying you for? Right? It was very frustrating. It was very, very annoying. And then I started seeing too, is like once we dug into some issues and certain people in the relationship had to take responsibility, like then we stopped going to therapy, fortunately. And so my marriage was falling apart again 6 years into it, into my marriage. And I was 26 at the time. And I was just being triggered a whole bunch, explosive anger. I started realizing I was reading some series of books that led me to realize, that I had trauma, yay, boohoo, right? Bunch of bullshit. Everyone's talking about trauma, and it was, there's little t trauma and capital T trauma, and everybody experienced some sort of shit, right? And I'm not trying to say here, woe is me, or compare things to me, but I dealt with severe abandonment, right? My parents were immigrants. There was times where they left us alone for a long time. And, CPS got called on my parents, and then I started seeing like my behaviors and how it was affecting, how it affected the way I grew up and the way I acted around people. Is basically like I had really bad codependency issues, and seeing and being around extreme violence and poverty kind of shaped, my, my hope for the best, but prepare for the worst mentality, and really my survival, right? And so I started going to trauma therapy at 26, and this trauma therapist, it was at a church that I was working at the time. She specialized in this thing called EMDR. It's eye movement something, but it basically, the whole premise of it is it helps you get to a point where you learn how to regulate your emotions, your body, like your stress, and you get to this meditative state where then your therapist. So at first it's discovery, right? It's like 4 or 6 weeks with discovery, or probably two weeks of discovery, finding out your history, stuff like that, and then you pinpoint what are the areas that really trigger things. And it basically is like, you created memories like this as a child, right? And then when trauma happened, right here, you basically were creating here to disassociating. So you started, just not becoming present. So what's happening is anytime something that comes up with that trauma and it reminds you of that time, you basically revert back to that childlike state. With me and my wife, every time we get in arguments, she's going to leave me. She's going to abandon me. And I'd explode in anger. That's how I protected myself against my mother. I remember she told me when I was 12, we got in this huge fight. She told me that I was going to be a druggie like my sister and a nobody like my brother. And I cussed her out and I told her to eat her words, that I'm going to make her eat her words one day. And at this time, I was 26. I was, accomplishing quite a bit with my life. And I still felt like that little boy that was 12, that no matter how much I accomplished, it wasn't going to be enough. And that's really what I brought into my marriage. And I faced my demons. I went in and I did trauma therapy. Basically, you go back to those situations and you basically allow yourself to rescue your child self and basically say like, hey, it's okay. You don't have to hang on anymore. I'm here. And I instantly saw the difference. Like I had severe road rage. I had all sorts of crazy stuff that I would do, just very dangerous things that helped me when I was younger, but now is harming my marriage. And this was supposed to take 12 weeks. and my therapist said, or it ended up taking me 34 weeks because of the level of issues and trauma that I had experienced. My therapist shared that she had, been raised in a cult and demon worship and all this bullshit. And she says that, my trauma's probably not there at that place, but it was pretty close with the abandonment and the violence that I had experienced growing up. And I'm not saying this to, throw me a fucking pity party or anything like that. I'm saying all this to say that most therapy is shit. Most of it is ruminating on shit you can't change. Going on a fucking walk is probably going to do more for you than that is. And also, like, these fucking therapists, they didn't tell me anything else besides, my emotions. Obviously, the EMDR one, I'm grateful for. I think that saved my life, my marriage, for a little bit longer than, probably was going to die. But I went to another therapist afterwards because my wife was complaining and I was going through some things. So I had to go to therapy to appease her, right? She put me on anxiety meds for the foreseeable future, because I had a temper with my kids and, it was probably until they went off to college that I had to be on that. And to me, it's just crazy. It's like I was overweight. I had so many other issues, that I was dealing with, and they put me on these fucking meds. And it's like, if I would have focused on my health as a man, you can really accomplish a lot and change a whole lot in your life by making more money and getting stronger. It's stupid. It seems ridiculous, and my focus was on, oh man, I'll make money. But in reality, if I didn't have my health, I was fucked. I was 210 pounds. I'm 5'6", 5'5", and 5'6" on Tinder. And, it's like, this is the stuff that I should have been working on. And most therapy sessions are just ruminating. And if they don't have a clear plan, if you're going to therapy and they don't have a clear plan or timeline for you to be doing this and an exit plan or an exit goal, don't do it. Because we're in this culture of like feelings, it's all about our feelings. And in reality, it's like, yes, there's a time where you mourn and you grieve the shit that happened, right? But at some point, you got to move forward. And I know I struggled with it for the longest time because I would always give my parents an out. I'd always give them an out. But you do have to label the things that people took from you in order to be able to move to the next process. Like if a judge could never say, hey, you're convicted of this crime, they can't either dismiss or pursue a case against you, right? And same thing is with the forgiveness or the beef you have with your parents. If you don't address the things that they did to you, the things that happened, how can you ever dismiss or move forward and process to the next state? Right. So I started reading all these books that really kind of like made me realize, I know one of them is Changes That Heal by Dr. Henry Cloud, Home Run by Kevin Meyer, I think it is. Another one by Andy Stanley called Enemies of the Heart. And then The Body Keeps the Score. All helped me realize the shit that I was going through. So, is therapy good? It can be. Is it bad? It can be. Do I have an answer for you? No. This isn't a fucking plug and play, right? You have to go and try and try things that work and things that don't. But if there's not a clear end goal or a way that you're going or something that you're doing, something you're accomplishing with this therapy, don't do it. Journal, talk to a trusted friend, go on walks, go to the gym, right? And if someone tries to medicate you, unless severely you have some issues, then, seek a second opinion. Like, this isn't medical advice. This is just advice to myself. This is something I wish I would have done. I wish I wouldn't have gotten on those fucking meds, right? I should have gotten active. I should have been running more. I should have been, doing the things that really do bring me the good self-created drugs and not self-medicating. So that's my 2 cents. Take it for what it is. You have your whole life ahead of you, man. And you only have one. Make it count. Go through the journey of pursuing what you need. And most people need a little bit of therapy. Yeah, most people have had trauma. They need a little bit of help. But, you'll be all right. And if they don't have a clear goal, then find another therapist. I love you. I hope this helps. Peace.